السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. And welcome to another video on the Islamic Knowledge YouTube channel. And in today's video, we're looking at an absolutely fantastic book. It's titled Abqariyyah al-Imam al-Shafi'i, and this is written by Mishari ibn Sa'ad ibn Abdullah al-Shathri, and it's printed by Afaq al-Ma'rifah. This is an absolutely phenomenal book. I've always said that one of the most important people that you need to read about when it comes to the history of fiqh is Imam al-Shafi'i, and therefore even for my Hanafi book, An Introduction to the Hanafi Madhab Volume 1, I've utilized this book, I've benefited from it. It's an absolutely fantastic book. And before we continue, if you do enjoy any of these videos, then maybe consider becoming an ambassador of Islamic knowledge. What that means is that you just contribute as little as £5 a month, and that just helps us to continuously make these videos, these reels, which all cost a little bit of money. And so therefore, if you think that's something that interests you, have a look in the description of this video and you will find a link to become an ambassador of Islamic knowledge. Now, I do have my own personal notes again of this book, and so I will share this as well on our Telegram channel. And so if you go onto Telegram and type in @IK courses, you will see a PDF, and it's very legible. Inshallah, you should be able to at least pick up all the key fawaid in the book, all the parts which I thought were interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. And what this book tries to show is that Imam Shafi'i, as the word Abqari suggests, is a genius. So if you have a look at the Fihrist first, the contents page, we've got Madkhal al-Abqariyyah. He explains first, what does it mean to be a genius? So he says, مالئ الدنيا وشاغل الناس مسارات النظر في العبقرية مثلث العبقرية العبقرية بين المحاكاة والمحاذاة. That a genius doesn't just follow and copy people. He comes up with his own way of doing things. So then now he gets into the life of Imam Shafi'i. حلية Imam Shafi'i, الميلاد إلى المدينة رفعه إلى العراق. Fantastic biography, by the way, really nicely well summarized. Doesn't go overly detailed into everything, but just gives you an overall nice summary. Then دعائم العبقرية, the pillars of the fact that these pillars prove that he was a genius. The fact is طليعة العبقرية, the initial stages, the kind of growth. Then the مشروع العبقرية, صحائف العبقرية, مشكات العبقرية, بيان العبقرية, عقل العبقرية, حجاج العبقرية. خارج on. Then اتصال العبقرية وانفصالها. Then he talks about his connection with the al-Madrasa al-Makkiyah, al-Madrasa al-Madaniyah, al-Madrasa al-Iraqiyah, al-Madrasa al-Yamaniyah. Then he speaks about Imam Shafi'i's connection with the Madrasa al-Hadithiyah, and then how Imam Shafi'i made his own madrasa, how he separated from the Iraqi madrasa, which is the Hanafis, and how he separated from the Malikis of Egypt, which is the Medinan madrasa, and then Markaziyyah Sunnah fi Mujadalat al-Shafi'i. Again, a fantastic book. Just want to show you a few of the unique features of this book. Firstly, on page 42, I think this one box, if you just have a look at it, that summarizes the life of Imam Shafi'i in just a box. That's it, and it's just so brilliant. You just read that box, and that is a summary of Imam Shafi'i's life. These are the these are the Hijri dates, and this is where he was in all of these places, because Imam Shafi'i he travels quite a bit. Now, another unique feature of this book, by the way, is he benefits from all the key writers in this topic. So when I think of key writers in the history of fiqh, I'm talking the likes of Lamin Naji, I'm talking the likes of Shaykh Ayman Salih, Shaykh Anas Sarmini, all of them coming to Shaykh Abdul Majid Mahmoud. All of these are like key writers, Mustafa Zarqa. So you can see he benefits from Shaykh Lamin Naji quite a bit. He critiques him at quite a few places as well, and you will find those critiques on different pages. But للدكتور ناجي لمين مراجعة في أن الشافعي قد مكث عند مالك إلى أن توفي. So here he's kind of critiquing Lamin Naji, that did al-Shafi'i stay with Imam Malik up until Imam Malik passed away. Lamin Naji is kind of inclined towards the fact that he didn't all the way until he passed away. That's not true, that he stayed all the way, but this author feels that it is very much possible. And min haythul jumla, he was with him all the way up until his demise. A few other places where you will see him, by the way, critiquing Lamin Naji. So he doesn't just follow everything Lamin Naji says. For example, on page 189 as well, you will see him critique Lamin Naji on another issue here. So page 189, I've made a note of this in my notes as well. You will see him critique Lamin Naji here. He says, where is it here? So he says, الحقيقة أن القول بأن الشافعي كان ربيبا لطريقته أو أنه تخرج به لا يخلو من نوع تنقيص من رتبة الشافعي. So he's talking about how Imam Shafi'i was indebted to Imam Muhammad. Obviously, Lamin Naji really tries to highlight this. This author, he does try to make it look like al-Shafi'i was not so much in need of Imam Muhammad, which I don't think, if you've read which I know this author has, so I don't know how he's not seeing what we're all seeing, which is that he is indebted to Imam Muhammad. So Allahu Alam, 2, 3, Page 236 again, you will see him critique Lamin Najih, and page 245 as well. Now, a few other fawaid inside the book about Imam al-Shafi'i himself. Page 156, for example, how Imam al-Shafi'i would debate, and it is really, really interesting. It's like you would feel like as though he's a predator that's about to pounce on you. ولمحمد بن عبد الحكم كلمات أخرى في هذا المعنى منها قوله وقال لو رأيت الشافعي يناظر لظننت أنه سبع يأكلك. You would think he's a predator, he's about to eat you alive. Page 110 kind of formulates one of the key ideas that I've also tried to show in my Hanafi book as well, which is that Shafi'i literally teaches the Ahlul Hadith how to do fiqh. And this is something that's been mentioned by Ahmad al-Shamsi in the canonization of Islamic law and other books as well. But he kind of says here as well, and he explains that وكانت تقريرات الشافعي في هذه القضايا خاصة من أعظم ما امتازت به أصوله وأهل العلم من مختلف المدارس المعتبرة وإن كانوا يثبتون السنة ويحتجون بها إلا أن الشافعي قد أولى هذا الأصل من العناية والإحكام ودفع المعارض ما جعله فردا في ذلك إماما في نصرة السنة والذب عن الأحاديث حتى كان بحق ناصر الحديث. ويقول الشيخ مشاكل, and he quotes Shaykh Mishari as well, he explains as well that Shafi'i, he actually explains to the Ahlul Hadith how to do fiqh, right? So this is really, really important. And then on page 127, you see another example of Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah doing Naqdul Matan. So this is something that you should probably gather in a full book, and it has been gathered, Naqdul Matan in the Imam al-Dhahabi, or you could say there's a book already on the Manhaj al-Naqd in the Dhahabi in Tarikh al-Islam. But have a look at this whole هذه حكاية نافعة, this whole story, that this comment here ما جهل الناس ولا اختلفوا إلا لتركهم لسان العرب وميلهم إلى لسان أرسطاطليس. So this whole story, الذهبي says وفي إسناده محمد بن هارون قال الذهبي محمد بن هارون لا أعرفه وقال في سير أعلام النبلاء هذه حكاية نافعة لكنها منكرة ما أعتقد أن الإمام تفوه بها ولا كانت أوضاع أرسطاطليس عربت بعد البتة. رواها أبو الحسن علي بن مهدي الفقيه حدثنا محمد بن هارون قال حدثنا هميم بن حمام قال حدثنا هرملة ابن هارون مجهول. So you can see al-Dhahabi at times he's just not happy with the quote, he does Naqdul Matan as well, and then he'll find something in the Sanad too, he'll find someone in the Sanad to blame it upon. So then on page 227, he tries to justify why Ash-Shafi'i was harsh on the Ahlul Iraq. And the whole reason is that basically, as long as Ash-Shafi'i has not explicitly mentioned who he's kind of refuting, then even if he does it harshly, it's absolutely fine because he's not said it. And this is quite famous, that because of Shafi'i's harshness in towards the Iraqis or towards the Hanafis, it did cause a counter, or it did cause, you could say, a ripple effect wherein the Hanafis now responded to Shafi'i like al-Jassas, etc., in a really kind of harsh way. So he's saying Shafi'i is justified. Why? Because he did not mention any names. ومن أجل هذا ربما رأيت الشافعي مشتدا في عبارتهم معهم وما ذاك إلا لكونه قد أبهمهم فاستباح من أجل ذلك تلك الشدة في الخطاب. Again, you can make of that what you will. I don't entirely agree with that kind of justification, but again, that's just the Hanafi speaking. On page 247, there is something which I do find a bit problematic about the author, one thing at least, which is that when he speaks here about how the common contemporaries today have understood a Shafi'i, he's kind of eager to say that the contemporaries have understood a Shafi'i in line with what later scholars have understood a Shafi'i to be. And so therefore this isn't correct. He says ويجدد التنبيه هنا على أمر وهو ما وقع في فهم كلام الشافعي في هذه القضية من لبس وخلط من قبل كثير من المصنفين حتى ربما قيل بأن قراءة هذا الكتاب مع استصحاب المستقر في كتب كثيرة من متأخر الأصوليين يغيب مراد الشافعي تماما، وذلك أنك تقرأ في كتبهم أنه لا يتحقق استحسان مختلف فيه. وهنا يأتي التساؤل، فالشافعي إذن يرد على من؟ وبعضهم يذكر أن الاستحسان بمعنى التلذذ كما يصفه الشافعي لا يقول به أحد، وهذه فهوم ينزه عن مثلها إمام بمنزلة الشافعي، وهو لم يتصدى للرد على ذلك إلا وهو يدرك تمام الإدراك أن ذلك الذي أبطله يعد أصلا أصيلا لدى من يرد عليهم، وإلا فلما يكلف نفسه عناء الرد. So you can see he's basically saying that all of those scholars who try to say istihsan was not as bad how Ash-Shafi'i made it look, they're wrong, because Ash-Shafi'i understands his contemporaries better than later scholars would. The only problem with that is later on he will understand the Iraqians exactly how Shafi'i understood them. So basically that's also not fair, because Abu Hanifa is way before Shafi'i, at least 2-3 generations before Shafi'i, because they pass away. He passes away in the year that Shafi'i is born, which really 100 years you would consider that to be 3 tabaqas. So that clearly tells you that if you're going to understand a Shafi'i if you're going to try to understand the Hanafis based on a Shafi'i, then you shouldn't have a problem with this, with people understanding a Shafi'i based upon how later scholars understood a Shafi'i. So that's one slight gentle critique I would make of the author. To page 259, he does actually admit, so in other places he doesn't really want to admit the role of Imam Muhammad upon a Shafi'i, but in another place here in 259 he's quite clear, and he admits quite openly that Imam Muhammad played a huge role in Shafi'i's life. And I think this is undisputedly the truth, and I don't think there's any denying of this. إذن فبعد أن كان الشافعي في مرحلته العراقية قد أخلص جهده ورد في نقد عرى المدرسة العراقية، شرع بعد دخوله مصر في النقد على المدرسة المدنية مع نقده كذلك للمدرسة العراقية، فإن مصر كانت تحفل بأتباع المدرستين، فكانت دخول الشافعي مصر محنة على المالكية المستقرين بها، بحيث أحدث شرخا في صفوفهم كما كان دخوله العراق من قبل محنة على أهل الرأي فيها. And then he mentions here as well, he discusses in this whole page, and he explains in this page, you can read a bit more in detail, that it was the Iraqians and it was particularly Imam Muhammad. فلما تجرد الشافعي للرد على محمد بن حسن وجد أن هناك خللا يدخل كذلك على قول مالك، ومما قد يدل على ذلك قوله في رده على محمد. So you could definitely say that Imam Muhammad, so he says ونظر في كتب محمد ولا سيما رده على مالك انتهض للرد على محمد، فوازن بين قوله وقول مالك، فكان أن دله ذلك على ما في كثير من مقررات المدرسة المدنية من نقد واختلال. So it's after reading Imam Muhammad's books that he realized there are problems with Imam Malik's approach, which is the approach that he was adopting at that time. So it's interesting. Like I said, the author has done a fantastic job, but it would be good if in books like this, where an author is focusing upon one great scholar of the past, that he doesn't just try to make the scholar look like as though he was amazing, and then instead of that he does try to give a little bit of naqd. And in this book there's very little naqd of a Shafi'i at all. If anything, it's just he was the greatest, and he was obviously an incredible person, but surely even as a Hanafi I would be more than happy if someone even found a little bit of naqd, and there is, of Imam Abu Hanifa's approach, whatever, just with a gentle critique that this is probably one thing that the opponents could say, and in that way we understand different perspectives. But the author unfortunately doesn't do that. It's still one of the best books that I've read on a Shafi'i, definitely. And here he explains why did a Shafi'i champion the cause of the Ahlul Hadith, who impacted him, and he kind of puts it down to Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Imam Malik, and also his connection later on with the Ahlul Hadith of Baghdad, like Imam Ahmad, etc., when he traveled to Iraq. So another few interesting comments, like I said, that you can pick up in this book is page 107, about how Imam al-Shafi'i, when he wrote Ahkam al-Quran, how many times did he actually read the Quran itself before he could read the Quran, before he wrote his أحكام القرآن. ولما أراد الشافعي إملاء تصنيف في أحكام القرآن قرأ القرآن من أجل ذلك 100 مرة. He read the Quran 100 times before writing أحكام القرآن. Another point that's interesting is every time you imagine someone like a Shafi'i or Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu or some of the great companions, you forget that they all used to dye their beard red. So any thought or any imagination you have of some of the scholars of the past, it kind of changes quite quickly when you think of the fact that you should be imagining someone with a red beard, basically. So it's mentioned about a Shafi'i, just like it's mentioned about so many scholars in the past and so many Sahaba as well, that they used to dye their beard red as well. You can see here as well. I've made a note of it here. I'm just trying to find exactly what I've written it, but it's on this page here. Yeah, there it is at the top. يخضب لحيته بالحناء حمراء قانية, حمراء قانية. So that's a strong red color, to the best of my understanding. Page 290, there's another indicative mention here of the importance of amal, how tawaruth and ta'amul is very, very important. And he mentions here, he discusses all of that here. مهما سبقت فلا تسبقن بتقوى الله عز وجل. He says here, وأنا والله ما شممت ذلك رائحة. I think he's quoting someone here. nope, he's talking about himself. وأنا والله ما شممت لذلك رائحة ولكني نظرت في سير الأئمة فوجدت عبادة الله تعالى شعارهم ودثارهم وبها نالوا ما نالوا ولم يكونوا يرون العلم إلا مصحوبا بالعمل ولا يكون المرء عندهم فاضلا في العلم حتى يكون فاضلا في العبادة وعمعانا في ذلك كانوا يتواصون بأن تكون حسرة طالب العلم على فوت العبادة أشد من حسرته على ما يفوته من العلم. So all of this, the fact that the early scholars were really, really adamant on their worship would emphasize the importance of tawaruth and ta'amul as well. And also another important point about al-Shafi'i, how his ibadah was, he used to finish 2 recitations of the Quran every single day in the month of Ramadan. So this is mentioned here as well, and this is known about Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala as well. كان الشافعي يختم القرآن في شهر رمضان 60 مرة كل ذلك في الصلاة. All of it would be in salah. Another interesting point is that Shafi'i used to love to walk with a walking stick, because a musafir walks with a walking stick, and so therefore Shafi'i liked to, even though he didn't need a stick, he would still like to use a stick because it would remind him that he's a traveler in this world. وكان الشافعي معتادا على مسك العصا من غير علة فقال له المزني مرة ما لك بد من إمساك العصا ولست بضعيف فقال له الشافعي لأذكر أني مسافر يعني إلى الآخرة. So this is really, really interesting. Again, the book is fantastic. You're looking at how many pages of reading. It's almost 297 pages, but it's really enjoyable. You won't be able to put it down. Author has benefited a lot from Manaqib al-Shafi'i. More or less, he seems to have read all of most of it anyway, at least, and really, really beneficial, even when it comes to the history of hadith, the history of fiqh, both really, really beneficial book. I think you'll enjoy reading this book. Get a hold of it, have a read of it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do join us for the next one. Jazakumullah khair wa ahsan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.